Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Patrick Zachary. I'm a professional scholar out of Toronto, Canada, who was finishing medical school. I had a 3.8 GPA at undergraduate, and I'm extremely high functional with ability to discern and detect very small permutations. I've been assisting multiple international law firms in preventing white-collar crime and fraud, and thankfully, they helped me because they helped me realize I was too being a victim by a property manager named Jessica McCormick, who works in Elmhurst, Illinois, at a place called Elm Creek. Now, I reported the incidents and the crimes when we realized that I was being the target of deceptive business practices. The property manager used my identity and for a period of 3 years, and her lawyer is currently misleading Detective Leppy, who I ended up coming all the way from Toronto to see and provided him, these are my notes, because I like to make sure everything's detailed to show how the crime took place. As this property manager impersonated and used my identity for years, and her staff members, Laura and another man named Rich, all of them who I've never met, who they were collecting information on phone calls and social media, decided to construct a residency and defraud me for $40,000. So their lawyer, who they're using, who remains silent in the presence of ARDC when I emailed it out, continues to deceive the police. Right? He told them this is a civil matter, and they just take it blindly. Meanwhile, here you go, the crime, miscellaneous special fraud. Illinois has instituted a separate section among its fraud laws addressing financial exploitation committed against elderly and disabled persons. Illinois has said that any attempts of knowing deception or intimidation of a person who's elderly, my poor mother, who's 70 years old and is delirious due to being catering to her disabled daughter who's dying, as well as my fiance, who was brought in, abused by the property manager as she used her identity to try to impersonate her and incriminate her, right? Later on, followed by her filing a fraudulent eviction so they could steal $40,000. Not to mention that that's called perjury, to misrepresent to a judge, which per my understanding is a crime, and I will show it in this here too. The fact that this lady posted against my credit, I believe this would be reasonably to conclude that a financial exploitation took place, especially since I have no contract. Now, Attorney Barheit misleads the Detective Leppy, saying that this is a civil matter. Won't respond back in the presence of ARDC, but I will be providing this to ARDC as well, because I'm eventually going after that gentleman's license. Because Illinois states that these types of crimes will always be classified as a criminal felony, which the conviction can result in several years in prison and thousands in fines. Any act of theft and deceit has the potential for garnering you fraud charges in Illinois. Now, I'm more than happy to go over all this with you, but it's a little bit dry, or I can give you an overview. All right? My fiance is disabled. She has a learning cognitive impairment ever since she was a child, and is unable to live alone or independently. In times when she's tried to, people would attack her and abuse her. When I met her, I actually had to help her get out of this and took her to Toronto where she got treatment, and I took her to get checked out because she had medical problems and so forth. I promised her mother and father that I would always be there for her before asking for her hand in marriage. And my parents love her because she's a sweetheart and she's a missionary girl. Now, my sister was diagnosed with a very rare condition known as CRPS that actually has no cure, and she's been fighting for her life for quite a few years, and it's had a detrimental impact on all of our psyche to the point where all of us have had to get either assistance or therapy because she's 30 years old and dying. This property manager, who I've never seen or met, decided to abuse us during our state of mind by deceptively omitting Illinois' laws and regulations, as multiple notices of vacant were given to her. Now, But instead, she tells me that in Illinois, you guys don't have something called a surrender clause or abandonment clause, and that as long as you leave property behind, you're still considered a resident, while this crazy manager and her staff decided to set up intercoms, use the premises, change settings to utilities, which I've informed the actual state attorney, and I'm going to be providing the same evidence in this runabout to law enforcement to show how this was criminal tampering to the premises. And in the end, ultimately created theft by deception, which per Illinois Criminal Code, Section 720, Illinois 516-12, anytime it has the same penalty as ordinary theft or retail theft. The fine can range from $5,000 to $100,000. Penalties can be steeper if the victim was over the age of 60 years old. My mother fell victim to this crime. Or if the criminal defendant poses as a landlord in order to steal money or property from the victim. She was posing as the landlord, which makes it exactly verbatim theft by deception, because there is no tenancy. Theft by deception involves the taking of property from another with the intent to deprive the owner of the property or his or her enjoyment of the property. In order for it to be proven, there was a victim who was induced to part with his or her money or property. This is simple to prove. I gave notice to Jessica McCormick in writing. She failed to actually abide by what was written in her own expired contract. Instead, they deceived me, theft by deception, and continued to take money from us for a period aware that there is no resident present. We lost money. Jessica McCormick, after later luring my fiance and recording her, which I will show, decided to get a fake eviction where she was trying to destroy property. They tried destroying the abandoned property, which is fine because I don't own it. It belongs to them, which I will also be showing. But this does not change the fact that she committed this incident. The victim transfer of the money or property of the criminal defendant was based upon deception on the part of the defendant. So, this property manager and her staff are, through lies of omission, failing to bring to surface the abandonment clause and the surrender clause, and the fact that their ledger shows no payment, and they're aware per an audio recording, which I took to show a crime is being committed, that there is no resident. Instead, continue to harass and threaten and extort me to take money and post against my credit in order to steal for more money, even claiming damages to a place that's never had a resident. The defendant intended to permanently deprive the victim of the property or money. Out of an attempt to try to lighten the load, Attorney Barheit's pretending that I can come collect the possessions, but they're not mine, because she already tried to destroy them, my dear friend. And your own clause, I'm sure you can read, shows that your abandonment clause means you guys have full possession. And with the history and the track record of the crimes that were performed here and the malicious intent, I have no trust to work with you guys in any capacity. In effect, I'm disgusted that you would lie to law enforcement, but it seems to be your nature in this area. But you also have a duty to your client, which I respect. But you also have a duty to the tribunal and ARDC to make sure no fraud is taking place, which you should be reporting to immediately. Now, the defendant acted with the specific intent to defraud the victim of his or her property or money. This was simple and easy to show, because in order for her to create the damages to her property and the multiple evictions, right, she would have had to tamper with the settings, as I will show. Also, her claim that my fiance was just there omitted to say that she brought Caroline there through the use of her associates that worked there. Also, the corporation tried to get me to create state benefits fraud and pretend that I was moving out when I don't even live in your country. Now, these elements must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. I really have no clue how much more clear it can be when a person's leaving multiple notices, hasn't made payment, doesn't live in your country, and yet perjury would be telling a judge that you're taking back possession of a place I do not own can be any further expressed. What? Sending someone a message to sign and defraud the state, which is a crime, because you don't have to do it, In effect, the law states right here. Well, here's the perjury law. Anyone that lies to under oath or misrepresents to a judge or anyone in that matter, or DuPage sheriff, which all have to take place in order for them to pretend that they were evicting me. This is classified as criminal and actually carries with it upwards of a 3-year sentence as a Class 3 felony. Right? Sentence is a Class 3 felony. I'm not sure how long it's going to be. It should be written in here somewhere, but I'm not going to go through all that. Right? Now, here is the best part. Fraud on a government entity. Illinois fraud statutes begin with fraud on a government entity. When someone obtains or attempts to obtain. So you don't have to obtain. Your attempt to obtain is enough to classify as the crime. It's written right there. Right? You could be charged with fraud if you knowingly use false identification or misrepresentation. Any general application information with intent to gain access to government programs. I shared with law enforcement a recording taken in Canada by this property manager and her corporation, who's out of Denver, trying to trick me to falsify a state government grant so they could apply and steal benefits for personal financial gains. This is defined, even though they failed to do so, the attempt at them to obtain it, as written here, is considered a felony class, and based on the amount they were trying to steal, which is in excess of $20,000, is known as a criminal felony conviction, which can carry 1 to 15 years in prison. Now, the notion that they failed to do so does not change the fact that the attempt was made. So, we have now fraud by deception. A person fraudulently causes someone to enter into a contract through deception. These personnel told me that when you leave anything behind, you're still considered a resident. Therefore, claimed that I have to go on a month-to-month, and this is just how it is. Now, later on, so there's the deception that was made in order to defraud me and defraud my family, right? Now, if you look into the study of this contract that's expired further, you will see that, I will bring it up, but here we go because we're going through it. This is Bethany McCausland out of Denver, who works with Jessica McCormick, making reference to stealing your state benefits, aware that I live in Canada. In effect, they're saying I should move out even though I don't have a contract in effect. That's beautiful, you know? And they know that they have to deliver to the premises because I live in Canada, and I'm absolutely not a tenant. But and here's another one of her talking about looking into more state programs as she's already made contact with them. I believe that doesn't qualify as an attempt. I really don't know what does. And here is Air Communities, Bethany McCausland. Here is the date of the lease start date, 08/24/2019. And here's the address, 2 Elm Creek Drive. Right? Now, the term ended 03/23/2020. I left this place August 27, 2019, way before COVID even began, where there was no resident present. These personnel were trying to get me to sign something for COVID so they could steal COVID benefits when I don't even live in your country, nor do I have a contract in effect. Because here's the deception. And here's my GPS showing the time I was in that building or close to that building. After that, there was a border closed between Canada and the USA. And I had reported to the Canadian police and gone to government agencies to get my vaccines in Canada. So there's no way, I'm not God. I can't be in 2 places at once. Anywho, when Jessica McCormick was pretending that they were producing this eviction and lied to the DuPage sheriff, because what they did is they lured my disabled fiancée to their building to incriminate her over 2-3 days, they, aware that she's not there, it was later discovered that the staff was tampering with settings, setting up utilities, intercoms, and whatnot to impersonate my disabled fiancée, who later bit them in the ass because, well, she's disabled, guys. She can't live alone. She has a caregiver. So I really hope you enjoy your time in prison, because that's where you belong. I have reported to the Canadian authorities, and I called the DuPage County Sheriff, because these persons had lied and perjurized to a judge using fabricated evidence, which is also tampering, another crime, in order to pretend that they were evicting a criminal and disruptive tenant when I don't even live in your country. Here is the first notice given to Jessica McCormick, right? Mind you, there's been other ones because by phone calls and so forth. I tell her, Madam, cease and desist. She had her and staff, in order to try to steal more money, kept on trying to accuse us of damages. And I wasn't even living in your building. I informed her here, Madam, I have now on numerous occasions emailed and responded via phone and informed the staff I have not been out of your country for the last 5 months and the apartment has been vacant. I truly don't know what language this woman speaks, nor does my mother, because she actually wrote to her the same thing. Right? This was taken on 02/20/2020. I'll ask her, please cease and desist these attacks on me. Stop talking to me. Stop messaging me. Here, and just to make sure Mrs. McCormick, who here goes, dear resident, I don't know how the hell she's still responding to me as a resident, right? McCormick responds, knowing she gets it. Good morning. Moron, I don't live here. Please stop talking to me. This email was sent to everyone in the area where we have had smoking concerns. What area? I don't live in your country. Not directly to someone, but rather to get information from other residents to find the culprit. What culprit? What are you, Sherlock Holmes? Anyway, as if that wasn't enough for her to take action, which I will later show that she had a duty to do her job, but instead decided to commit a crime. She sent another message, almost at May 20, 2021. My mother, Lillian Zachary, in Canada with me. No smoking in community. Madam, this is a year after I've already given you notice. I haven't been back to your premises, and you're aware of this because I'm talking to you and telling you I don't live in your country. I tell you, she responds, I actually never lived in your building. My son left the apartment over a year ago. To which point, McCormick still doesn't respond. Not to mention, they instead lie to us now because so much time has gone by, and they haven't found another tenant or taken possession of their own unit, even though they own it. Instead, they lie to my disabled fiance, who shows up and tells them Patrick left over a year ago. And they tell her, well, yeah, but he left his stuff behind, so you guys are going to have to sign and renew the lease. And my fiance's like, well, I don't live here. So they trick the poor disabled girl, and they ask her to sign the lease, even though she doesn't have the power of attorney or doesn't have the right to sign anything. And the guarantor immediately voids the renewal. See, here you go. Void by Lillian Zachary. Still, McCormick, desperate, still aware there's no resident in this building, sends another notification. This time, my mother tweaks out and says, I sent you many times before. Stop sending me emails. I don't live there. I never lived there. My son left your building over 1.5 years ago. Do you speak English? What language should I send to you to understand? No more emails. Criminal harassment by Jessica McCormick and her staff. Now, McCormick does not desist, continues on with this, and I'm under deception because they are telling me that in Illinois, it's normal to keep charging someone if you left things behind. Now, the crime called fraudulent tampering, right, clearly says that anyone who intentional and improper or harmful interference with something, and it encompasses crimes involving dangerous modification or sabotage. I would propose, and I'd imagine anyone with common sense would agree, if a property manager was to tamper with utility settings or to create damages to a building, to endanger the public of the people in her building, and attempt to incriminate a disabled girl, which per the very beginning here shows that any attempt at deception involving entrapment or endangering or exploitation of anyone that's elderly or disabled will always be classified as a criminal felony. Once again, will always be classified as a criminal felony. This is just so Attorney Barheit can get it in his head, in case he seems to have suffered some type of dementia or Alzheimer's, misleading the authorities. Mind you, his track history isn't so clean either, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So, these people who have now tried to get a Canadian to defraud the state of Illinois, who have expressed that they're looking into more state benefits to steal, who have no lease because it's expired, who the GPS shows where I am with a closed border. The police, the DuPage sheriff was called, who told me, get this to Elmhurst Police Department because this is fraud and this bitch should be arrested, as even citizens are aware this is a crime taking place. The Canadian police gave the notice, the cease and desist, from 5 months prior to 2020, to which McCormick continues to contact and deceive with her staff, some lady named Laura, another man named Rich. Multiple notices from the guarantor myself, avoid renewal. Yet, she does not desist. We end up, after these crazy people are trying to send me a memorandum to sign in Canada so they can steal state benefits, which will upload the audio recording for all to hear. And it was already presented to law enforcement in Elmhurst, as well as I also have a recording consensually taken with the FBI, who told me to have Elmhurst PD look into this. Because, let's be real, you're all taxpayers and hardworking people, and we pay law enforcement to protect our rights, do we not? And frankly, I can't imagine law enforcement being okay with someone stealing from the state of Illinois. Because they should care for our well-being nonetheless, right? Let alone if you're getting paid to do your job, do it right. You know? So, here goes. I hired an attorney because who informed me I was been getting abused and deceived by these personnel who wrote and actually spoke to Deputy Chief Kalzarowski and tried to relay the message to him, because I wasn't even in the country when Jessica McCormick decided to lure my fiance and incriminate her and entrap her and abuse her with her staff, Laura and Rich, while I was on video. Jessica McCormick staged a service request, even though I don't own possession, as the contract will show. There is no contract at all in effect. But the moron decided to fabricate evidence to modify a ledger, which anyone using common sense and reading can see that entry had been done by her, because it's fraud. She's using my identity to install services which no one asked for, which she later used to commit perjury to lie to a judge. Here's the attorney I hired writing, "Please be advised that I have been retained by Mr. Zachary. This correspondence serves as notice to his former tenancy with your client, Aimco. My client vacated the unit he rented from Aimco in 2019. And the notice to Jessica McCormick, and I have never been there since, and has not resided since then. He advised representatives of Aimco numerous times, who continue to call me since that date, and advised them that they were entitled to retake possession per their contract, which they were deceiving to tell me, right? Despite his repeated efforts to tender possession, Aimco has engaged in a campaign of harassment and intimidation against him, relentlessly contacting him for an alleged debt he does not owe. How can I owe you a debt when I don't live in your country, or do I have a contract, nor am I a resident of Illinois? These repeated collection attempts are not only a violation of my client's rights under the Fair Debt Collection Practice, but are also a violation of the Illinois Criminal Code." There you go. Meanwhile, Barheight's smiling and saying, "Oh, no, it's just civil. Anyway, little bitch. "My client denies liability for any outstanding rent." How can I have an outstanding rent when I don't have a contract with you morons? "He demands that you cease and desist any further effort to contact him." This was already done once before with Jessica McCormick, but they continued to contact me for 2 years about this or any other matter. "Should you wish to discuss any further, please direct all communications to Attorney Drennan," who, even though with all of this, that even a 6th grader or a 5th grader could see the crime was taking place, Aimco still wants to put up a fight and pretend that they're owed money. Anyway, here's the best part. So this is the part to assist the state, because I wish to follow the state attorney's advice, who had informed me that if I could prove that this property manager was tampering or taking out utilities or doing changes, that he would have no problem prosecuting. All right? So here you go. So first, let's define what the term tampering means. It refers to intentional, improper, or harmful interference with something, and it encompasses crimes involving dangerous modification or sabotage. Now, there's a bunch of, this is all for Illinois, right? So some people, tampering, fraud in transfers of real estate, so a property manager pretending that you're renting and you're a tenant, or trying to steal your money, that would be fraudulent tampering, especially since she set up intercoms, staged service requests, tampered with settings, which I'm going to show here, send mail fraud and wire fraud, having people sending me messages and emails not abiding by the cease and desist to create a paper trail to pretend, eventually luring and abusing a disabled girl, and then committing fraud on the creditors, going to the collection agency. If this is not a crime, I really don't know what is, gentlemen, because it's written right there. Anyway, here's one of the parts that were deceptively being omitted by Laura and Jessica McCormick from their expired contract. If resident leaves personal property in the apartment, as the audio recording, which I actually sent when they tried to have me falsify the actual government document, showed they are aware no resident was present during that entire time, as they even attested to it in the call. They also said that the stuff was left behind, hence why they wanted to steal money from the state, because they were trying to deceive me to sign. Here it goes. This is their duty. If resident leaves personal property in the apartment home at the end of this lease or abandonment of the apartment home, resident irrevocably waives all rights, all resident parties, all right, title, and interest any resident party has to such personal property, and grants the landlord full authority to dispose immediately of the personal property. So, they own everything since the date I gave her notice. Not to mention, I will go in through the surrender clause and the abandonment clause again, eventually, so you guys can see it. And this is why Attorney Barheit sits there with his thumb up his ass, quiet, because what's he going to say? Right? And in fact, he wrote to us back in the day when he was trying to intimidate me that he would not answer back any past questions. But let's get into the fun part, which is the intentional damage done by this property manager, right, through tampering to create damages and endanger all of her tenants, the people that were there. So, if you look, I used to scroll down a little bit, I'll come back to this. Some moron that works here. So this is a paper trail of them sending me emails in Canada. They were all going to junk mail, telling enjoy the pool, this and that. Mind you, the phone calls all show that they are aware that no one's there. Here's a surrender clause that they were omitting. Surrender or vacating of the apartment home shall occur upon the first to occur. All residents who sign this lease live elsewhere and the lease term has expired or been terminated. We had left this place before 2019 without setting up any services or anything. These people, they should have surrendered it. Now, McCormick, thinking that she's being bright, lures my fiance with staff, even though the chronological order of time show that, even in her own ledgers, show that there is no contract and we don't own possession, madam. So she owns everything, and she's trying to incriminate a disabled girl who she lured with her staff. Now, here is the abandonment section. Abandonment occurs during the lease term. The apartment home and any of its residents' personal property in the apartment shall be deemed abandoned. Meaning, this is an order. This has to happen. Not may be deemed abandoned. Shall. When a resident is absent from the apartment home without notice to the landlord for 10 days and while rent is late for 10 or more days. This stupid bitch has not been paid for 2 years. So I'm going to ask you, what's stopping her from getting off of her fat ass and going to do her job? Oh, that's right. Let's try to pin someone else and commit crime and affect everyone. There you go. So here's that disposition of property that I mentioned. Now, here is the Illinois landlord's new statutory duty to mitigate damages. Okay? It tells you in January 1, 1984, January 1st, 1984, imposes a duty upon landlords to Illinois to take reasonable measures to minimize losses caused by a tenant's breach of a lease. I gave them notice. They had to collect their own damage. They had to get their own expired contract. Tells them that they have to actually abandon, surrender, notice vacant. It tells them they have a duty to dispose of the property. But they didn't do any of it. So instead they're committing a crime. They're defrauding the state. They're trying to defraud me. They did defraud me. What am I talking about trying? Here you go. Now, some imbecile, because it seems to be all of these imbeciles like to work together, here's his phone number, 224-283-3241. Please note, he's sending me this video while I'm in Canada. Okay? And the door is open because the staff have been entering and exiting this premises as they see fit because they have the code. He says, "Hi, John. This is Rich from Elm Creek Apartments in Elmhurst, Illinois. We changed the batteries on your apartment door today. But we just covered that the abandonment and the surrender clause and the notices provided show I don't own possession. So I have no idea what he's talking to me for and why they're violating the cease and desist that was sent. I videotaped the battery replacement as you requested. Okay. Also, it appears ComEd shut off your power. They are trying to tamper now to create damages to their own property. I never lived here. I never cooked here. I never showered here. I never had food here. I had set up no car. I had no car on premises. No utilities set up. No what the hell? No settings on camera. No fob access. There's a border closed between countries. Multiple notices presented to this insane lady and her staff who are deceiving us. Now, the best part is that anyone would have just thought, oh my God, he didn't pay his bill. That's what happened. Well, here you go. It shows that in order for the power settings to be turned off, it has to be done intentional damage by the property manager. How you want to see that? It's right here. Take a look at their expired clause from their utilities. So number one, I own no possession. We've already established that. So here, payment of the utilities, landlord shall pay for all of those utilities identified in the annex. Resident, which there has no resident, because we've already established that, shall be subject to the direction of landlord to pay for other utilities. Now, I have already defaulted. I've already told her I left your state, I left your country, and she's not letting me get out of my fucking contract. She's extending it because she's defrauding me. Now, here it says that in the event if someone doesn't pay their bill, even though I have no bill, right? If someone fails to pay the bill, the property manager, if resident fails to transfer utilities by the time requested by landlord shall have the right to charge residents for all utility charges service billed to the residence unit by the provider and may charge a reasonable administration fee of $50. Thus, even if someone didn't make the payment, right, there's no way for power to be shut off because the property manager absorbs it and pays the $50 to keep the power on. In order for anyone to change that, you would need somebody to sign. No changes can take effect unless a resident signs back. And this is during the lease term, which is expired, ladies and gentlemen, as I've already surrendered and defaulted. Now, it says here, written consent would have to be given back, meaning Jessica McCormick is either committing forgery, right, or using my identity to make these changes. Anywho, that should show enough about the utilities identity theft and intentional sabotage and damages that took place to this property and endangerment of the public, and how it was done with intent by Jessica McCormick. Now, let's keep going on. So we have the paper trails coming in. The fact that I'm in Canada. The surrender clause, which wasn't being applied. Deception. The abandonment clause that wasn't being applied. Deception. The fact that they could have disposed of it was written right there. But they decided not to because they were deceiving us. You have here the fact that there's damages that they created as they're entering and exiting. And the power shut-off, which is intentional, as I just demonstrated. And this crazy man who's sending me messages at 3:54 a.m. Who the hell sends messages at 4 in the morning? Especially when I don't even live in your country. Constantly bombarding me with these long, obscene messages talking about, oh, power turned off. I could go in, but I don't want to, blah, 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 blah. I don't live in your country, buddy. I just left stuff behind, but you have a duty to get rid of it. Anyway, he waited, and then they eventually asked for my fiance to be sent here, under the impression that they were going to mitigate, and she could collect the stuff that we had left behind, even though apparently we don't own them here. This part here shows entry by landlord. In the event, this is from their own expired contract. These personnel had full rights, even if I was a resident, to enter in the event of any emergency, and in effect, the moron just said when he sent me the original message, the door's open as he's entering the premises. So, it's obvious they know how to go in and out, and what happened when I asked my fiance to go collect the evidence was notices were seen all the way back to 2019 with Jessica McCormick and Rich's name on it, as well as
People had brought food to this place. There was packages we never brought. There was tampering. People were either using this place, or Jesse McCormick had literally set up and used this place, and God knows doing what to it, which I believe merits an investigation. Here, next step is, this was denied by Jessica McCormick in her claim. So here's Rich, who now asks, after the recording where these people tried to incriminate me to falsify the memorandum 2 years after I hadn't even been in the country, right? They blew her my fiance there over a few days, where she's given the code. Here's Rich telling her, have her empty out the fridge, because the staff just created damage to their own fridge. He has to ask if she has the code because they have to give it to her. Suddenly, he accuses her. Look at the damage that she caused. Moron. She lives in her house. She lives with her mother in Des Plaines. I've told you, we don't even own possession of your unit, yet you're gonna try. McCormick and the rest of the idiots that work here try saying that we created damages, this and that, even though I never lived in your building, and I've never set up services or anything. As soon as they realized I was talking to the police, they went silent. So they were trying to build up a bill saying that there was damages with false claims, which I'd imagine were probably going to be used against the insurance company. Once again, I never set up services, no utilities here, no mailbox here, no car on premises, no sightings on camera, no fob usages, a border closed with multiple notices which were provided. And there's no keys to return because staff has a code and they've been using it. McCormick, having brought my fiance here and recording her over a period of 3 days, where I will show she's presented to the office every day to have permission, and McCormick even wrote, I saw her in the office. No shit, I was on the phone, you moron. You even talked about it. Decides that she's going to commit another crime, which is called perjury. It's written right there. Perjury. Crime. A person commits perjury when under oath or affirmation in a proceeding or in any other matter whereby law the oath or affirmation is required, he or she makes a false statement material to the issue or point in question, knowing the statement is false. McCormick put my name as the person who she's evicting, aware I don't have a contract and I don't live in the country. She lied to a judge using fabricated evidence from the tampering, which I just demonstrated had to take place, lured and abused a disabled girl in order to exploit financial exploitation committed against elderly and disabled persons, which shall always be classified as a criminal felony. Furthermore, her and her staff, omitting all the notices provided to them, which they responded back to, and the clauses in their own expired contract, decided to perform theft by deception, as we've already covered, by fraudulently causing someone to believe that they're entered into a contract as they're accruing bills against me. So the statement now, perjuring to the judge, in order to get a false order, which I never received a summons for because I don't live in your country, their attorney assists with the crime by sending an email pretending he's posting to my door when I don't live in your country. The DuPage sheriff was lied to because he believes he's evicting me when I don't even live in your country, nor do I have a contract, hence why I called him, and he told me refer to Elmhurst PD, because someone should be getting arrested here. Just as normal citizens are aware, it's just a crime. It's really not neuroscience, ladies and gentlemen. It's very basic information here. It doesn't get easier than this. Now, here is the DuPage County Sheriff's Office being called, asking why the hell hasn't a warrant been made for this woman's arrest? Good question. The Canadian police had the same question, and so did the FBI. Perhaps Commander Rifkin and the deputy sheriff, or Commander Kelzarowski, Deputy Chief Kelzarowski, who's spent time talking to my attorney, who informed him this is a criminal matter. Perhaps they could answer the questions for you, because they're the ones who, last I checked, are supposed to take care of law enforcement in Illinois, or law enforcement in Elmhurst. And if they would do their job, it would be great, because it would clear up my time and I can get back to my work. That would be greatly appreciated, gentlemen. Now,
We've covered through the cease and desists. Covered through this. Here's a notice that the attorney told him this is a crime, ladies and gentlemen. Right? Here is... We already talked about the utilities, how the only way for it to be done is through tampering. It's written right there in black and white. Next to that, here is the paper trail, also known as a cyber crime. Right? The surrender clause, the abandonment clause, the disposition, the actual rules in DuPage that they are supposed to actually mitigate. The fact that they could have entered, and the fact that they were entering and exiting as demonstrated. And in fact, these people called me in Canada after they tampered and set up an intercom as they were impersonating my disabled fiancé. I've already expressed to the police that they have in their ability to search either cell phone triangulation, DNS servers to see where the phones are at. They can go to her workplace. They can check city cameras. They can check the cities. They can check the cameras here. They have the ability to subpoena this information. Right? The fact that I'm in Canada should speak volumes, because how can you evict a person who doesn't live in your state? Now, here you go. So that was Rich, who staged my fiance after luring the disabled girl and abusing her. And Jessica McCormick pretending that there's damages to a place that was never used. This is them. They posted against, here's a computer fraud. Whenever a fraudulent act is committed involving the use of a computer or internet, text messages, emails, blah, blah, ranges from acts of illegal access to destroying entire physical devices. This lady, here's identity theft, which is basically using my name in impersonation. After committing perjury to the judge and getting an order, sent out an email pretending I was in the process of moving out. All right, let me pull it up for all of you to see. Let me see if I can just connect real quick, because this is fun, because they all went silent since that. The only difference is that they know that the Elmhurst Police Department is very busy, and they're basically, well, you know what they say, if you're a liar, you're a liar, and now they're trying to deceive the Elmhurst Police Department not to look into this. So what better way but to show them, because I don't care for stories, I care for hard facts and evidence. Click the Wi-Fi hotspot. How do I do that? Okay, connect. That's fine. I'm sure. I have to friggin' do this again. How do I do this? Is it working? Oh. You know what? I'm going to have to do it on my phone. I'm not sure. I'll do this in a sec. Come back to it. Right? So, this lady tried to pretend that I was in the process of moving out and proposed I come by their office to give her my new forwarding address, using 2-3 days worth of evidence they collected, omitting the 3 years. That is the biggest fraud you could do, because you're pretending to evict someone that has no contract, and you've extended their contract terms by tampering and creating the illusion, but you're using my identity, ladies and gentlemen. And there's an audio recording with them trying to get me to falsify a memorandum from Canada. How much more evidence does a police department need to see fraud taking place? Or maybe, even better, is there a reason they don't want to see it? Is there a reason they're pushing me aside? Is there a reason I've had to show up 6 times as in the other video, and yet these officers keep brushing it aside? Is there a reason that when the FBI, as the recording said, told me to get in touch with Elmhurst did not want to talk to me? Is there a reason that when the Canadian police are telling me, call Elmhurst, and the victims present in person, taking time off of their work and their day to show up to the Elmhurst Police Department, and I had to go to the state attorney's office to get the document, right, to show them that this fraud is taking place, that the Elmhurst PD was reluctant to look into it. In effect, one of the officers tells me, just go back to Canada. Listen, I don't want to bother you or get you off your ass, but I do have a question for you. Who do you propose we give criminal activity to? Who should we report crimes to, officer? If you could please direct me who is responsible for your jurisdiction, that would be greatly appreciated. Now, here is the beautiful part about Attorney Barheit, the guy who's now deceiving the police department.
Here's one of his other clients off of his own website, who says that during this time, Attorney Barheit sent to his tenant a fake summons with a forged signature of the seal, and a forged signature and seal of the circuit court in an attempt to get them to move out. This law firm, based on this claim, is forging a judge's signature and their seal. If that's not fraudulent, I really don't know what is, ladies and gentlemen, and where'd you draw the line? Make it matters worse, this moron is sending me emails, which I will share with you, pretending he's posting on my door when I'm not even in your country, saying he will not answer back questions in the past. I've CC'd him in front of ARDC, where I've asked him the most elaborate, basic methods. Just simple yes or no. Is it a crime to defraud the U.S. or attempt to, Mr. Barheit? Yes or no? I know it's hard. We'll wait for you and we'll try to give you a little bit of a motivation. Do you understand the difference between the term shall and may, Mr. Barheit? Could you explain how the abandonment clause and the surrender clause never took effect, sir? Could you please explain why you didn't report this fraudulent activity to ARDC and you allowed to lie to a tribunal, sir? You know, is it okay for you to deceive and lie to the police department, sir? Could you at least, you have no problem talking to the police department and telling them it's a civil matter. Could you please discern what you believe is different between civil and criminal? Because I'm pulling up quotes here directly from the government site showing that these are all criminal acts, my friend. And I don't know if you should be practicing, or maybe it's time for you to retire. Because if you can't even get the damn email right off of the first page, all I have to say is, thank God you're not my attorney. You have a layman like me sitting you straight. Can you imagine if I was a lawyer? There you go. Now, the officers asked me, when I gave them the recording of Air Communities trying to defraud the USA and falsify the grant, if I taken consent. Gentlemen, you don't need consent if you're capturing a crime. Even though, number one, I'm in Canada, meaning I don't have, Illinois laws don't apply to me when I'm in Canada. Two, Illinois has an exemption allowing surreptitious recordings, meaning the person doesn't have to know you're recording them, if you have a reasonable suspicion that another party to the conversation is about to commit or has committed a criminal offense against the person or a member of his or her immediate household. Fraud is a crime. Attempting to get me to falsify a document when I'm out of the country is also trying to get me to commit a crime. It is them committing the crime, right? Me being an ethical person reported it to law enforcement, and hopefully they will act. The next step here is the fact that McCormick, having now committed perjury, which we decided is a crime, because we're listening to the actual written verbiage, not how we feel, but what's actually written, ladies and gentlemen, posts fraudulently to a company called Genesis Creditor, who it's a collecting agency, for $38,000 to defraud me. Now, the best part about this is the collector won't take my calls, because I told him let's sit together and go over the evidence, sentence for sentence. At which point he said, he won't let you, don't talk down to me. I'm not talking down to you. I'm not being condescending. You are just a bloody idiot in its simplest terms. Because if you can't rationalize and put this together, you really have problems and you shouldn't be doing your job. You should be getting fired. Because I even showed to these people their client trying to steal state benefits. And the collector doesn't want to take my calls. Have you ever heard of a collector trying to block you from talking to you? That says something about this company and its associates. So a whole bunch of imbeciles working together. Here is the identity theft report that I had started based on the Canadian Police Assistance done what to do in the FBI. So I went and did the identity theft report, which I gave to the Elmhurst Police Department. The Attorney General also told me to start working on the identity theft report. You can seek help for this. Here's the Canadian police, who I had reported to while McCormick was pretending I was moving out, even though I was in Canada. They were unaware that I had actually reported this, and here's the Canadian fraud report number. Right? As soon as I exposed McCormick, she's looking at my LinkedIn. Look at her. Such a cute little face. I hope they enjoy you in prison, madam, where you belong. And she's collecting information off of my social media. So if I may propose to you, ladies and gentlemen, because I learned this the hard way, block your social media. Or put as little information as you can. Because this woman is collecting information on me in order to impersonate me. And that's exactly what she did. And as soon as I can get this internet up, I'm going to show you guys how she impersonated me moving out and tried to destroy the evidence, as well as the confession received by Attorney Barheit, because he doesn't want to lose his license, when he wrote back to Attorney Charles saying, we didn't destroy it, the stuff are in a room. Listen, buddy, you can do whatever the fuck you want with it. It's in black and white in English. Abandonment, bang. Surrender happened already. As well as you have a duty to mitigate your own damages. And you could have damn well disposed of the property as it's written right here. I'd like this reversed immediately, and I want to press charges against Mrs. McCormick, Rich, and Laura. And I understand that the police department is able to communicate with Barheit. The FBI had informed me to try to get this message to their board of directors in Elmhurst. In Denver, whom refused to take questions and refused to answer back to me. Perhaps now that I've pointed all this out, you gentlemen may have better luck getting the information from Barheit. And as I expressed in the state attorney, I'm more than honored to always be present and come become a professional witness, because I would love to put these people in prison. Have a great day, and may God bless you all. Be safe.